There's a moment that lives inside me and maybe inside you too. A moment after the fire, after the catastrophe, after the unbearable loss. In this week's Torah portion, Parshat Shmini, each and every year, we return to the scene of something shocking and unimaginable. After the Torah describes the consecration of the now working Mishkan or tabernacle in the desert, after a successful offering that is brought to the altar, newly minted, and a heavenly fire descending from heaven to consume the offering, Vayikchu, the two sons of Aaron, two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, bring a strange fire, Asher lo tziva otam, that was not commanded. And a fire descends yet again from heaven, but this time consumes the two boys. The shock of that moment, unexpected, even when you know what's coming, is only further shocking and deepened. The shock is deepened by Aaron's younger brother, Moses' response. In the immediate next words, Moses fumbles and says something to him. This is what God says, B'krovaya Kadesh, some quote, some attempt at making intelligible that which is unintelligible, perhaps, maybe offering comfort. The commentaries, the Meforshim over the last couple thousand years have struggled to understand Moshe's feeble attempts here. But one thing we know is that Aaron, who the Bible tells us was a mouth, a speaker, an eloquent and brilliant orator, does not offer anything but his silence. Vayidom Aharon. And Aaron was silent. Why? Was he frozen like an inanimate stone, unable to process? Was his grief too deep for speech? Was it a surrender? Was it faith and acquiescence? The Torah doesn't say. The Torah is silent about Aaron's silence. It just leaves us standing there with Aaron at the smoldering ruins in the thick and unspeakable silence. And every single year, when the sirens wail across Israel, on Yom HaShoah, on the week that always has Parshat Shmini, the portion of Shmini, when the buses and the people freeze in the streets, we can feel that silence again. It's a silence that asks us, how do we respond when everything that we love, is taken by fire? You know that silence too, I'm sure. A loss maybe that crushed your voice, a betrayal that stunned your heart, a moment when explanations burned away, leaving only a raw, aching presence. I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, each and every one of you here has stood before a fire that you could not stop. And like Aaron, you were left with a choice. How will I respond? This week, she should stay. Let's just stand up and give her a little dance. Just a little dance with her. An email from our brilliant executive director, Jeff Kahn, this week touched in me a story that I told a couple of years ago in the Nova Festival. And it adds its own fire to the fire already of Aaron's children. So we're holding that, right? Aaron has lost his children. He could rage, he could collapse, he could curse God, but he's silent and surrendering or something else. We're going to hold that. But the fire that Jeff, in his beautiful email to the community where he recounted losing the letters from Auschwitz that he'd been entrusted and his family had been entrusted. And of course, the notion of lost letters and fire brought me to the second text, not Aaron, but from the Talmud. A story about a sage named Hananiah ben Tradion. Hananiah ben Tradion was alive during the occupation by the Romans, when the Romans forbid the Jews from teaching Torah in public at penalty of death. But this Rabbi Hananiah refused to obey the law. He gathers his students together and he teaches them openly, and he's arrested. And as punishment, they take out a Sefer Torah, a scroll of the Torah, and they wrap him in it. And they tie him to a stake, and they set him on fire. And to prolong the agony, the Talmud says that they placed a wet piece of wool around his heart to slow the flames down. And as he's burning, his students say to him, "Our teacher, our master, what do you see?" And Rabbi Hananiah famously says, "Gilion nisraf v'osios porchos ba'avir." I see a scroll burning, a parchment burning, but letters flying to heaven. The scroll is consumed with the Spirit and the holiness, the truth. It ascends beyond the flames. And even at the very end, Rabbi Hananiah refuses to let the Romans steal his dignity. He teaches and he sanctifies. He holds on to his soul. And the third fire, this past week, Yom HaShoah, the greatest fire of them all, and in its flames, the deepest resistance too. I taught the seniors this week at the 92nd Street Y Hyman Brown Center the story of the brother of the Ger Rebbe, Rabbi Mendele Alter, who was marched toward the gas chambers of Treblinka, and as he was taking to the gas chambers, he pleaded with one of the capos for some water. To everyone's surprise, the man who was one of the most sadistic among the German lackeys brought him the water. However, Reb Mendele didn't drink it, but he used it to wash his hands, to purify them for the last prayer that he would say on earth, which is the vidui, the confession. He remembered and told all of those who were present and watched that the Nazis, when they had come upon him and taken him, had broken into his study, and they had found a hidden Torah scroll, and they had stomped on it and stabbed it and tore it apart with an insane hatred that defied anything he could imagine. And he understood in that moment, he told everyone that the Nazis did not seek merely to destroy the Jewish body, but they sought to destroy the Jewish soul, the neshama. And Reb Mendel's final act was to cling to holiness and to purity. He held on to his dignity, the unbreakable core of what it means to be human. He refused and resisted his own dehumanization. And with these two stories of fire, we can understand Aaron's silence, I think. Aaron's silence can come into focus. Aaron was not passive. His silence was resistance. Like Rabbi Hananiah, who saw letters flying to heaven while the Torah was burning around him. Like Reb Mendele, who sanctified his last steps with prayer and tenderness. Aaron's silence wasn't empty. It was defiance. It was dignity. It was refusal. Aaron refused to let the fire have the last word. Aaron refused to surrender his soul. Standing before the ashes of everything he loved, Aaron's dmama, his silence, thunders. You can burn what I love, but you cannot burn who I am. You can burn what I love, but you cannot burn who I am. Aaron's profound silence wasn't the absence of a response, it was the refusal to respond, knowing that to respond in that moment was to deny his core being. He was silent in the face of an interrogation by his younger brother, who should never have interrogated him. Aaron's fierce, broken, holy insistence was, I will not give you who I am. So what dignity are you carrying tonight? You, here tonight. What dignity are you carrying? What holiness do you refuse to give up? What in you refuses to let a world become diminished? Each and every one of you here is an inheritor not only of a survival, but of a resistance movement. Each and every one of you, part of the resistance to the dehumanization all around us. You carry the memory of those who taught and prayed and sanctified and clung to holiness even while burning. You carry flying letters, all of you. You carry an unextinguished hope. You carry a fierce and unbroken and beautiful resistance that says, you cannot destroy who I am. I am a child of Aaron. I am a child of Rabbi Hanania. I am a child of Rabbi Mendele. I am a child of all of those whom we remembered this week and every year, who chastise us, not only to remember them, but to embody their refusal that they embodied, the refusal to be dehumanized. But today, the Shabbos memory itself is under assault. There is authoritarianism rising again. Book bans and censorship and intimidation and cruelty. And at the same time this week, the Shoah, the sacred memory of our people, was desecrated. When the New York Times decided to publish Larry David's comparison of Bill Maher's dinner with Donald Trump to having dinner with Hitler, Hitler, Yamach Shemo v'zichro. When everything becomes Hitler, nothing is sacred. The Shoah is not a metaphor. It is not a punchline. It is not a political tool. It is not a meme. And while this was happening, some of the very people who had been warning us legitimately and rightfully about authoritarianism that is all around us are often some of the same ones who spin Hamas as a resistance movement, instead of naming them as a genocidal theocratic regime bent on the slaughter of Jews. They said that themselves. It's hard to take seriously those warnings when they come from people who will not call out the murderers of Jewish children. This is not moral nuance, it is moral incoherence. If we are true to the spirit of Aaron and of Rabbi Hanani and of Mendel, then we must refuse the desecration of the memory of the Shoah and also refuse the normalization of hatred, which is all around us at this moment. We must both refuse the normalization of hatred, the dehumanization of our fellow brothers and sisters and people around us, and also refuse to allow and to sanction the desecration of the memory of the Shoah. That's true resistance. It means that we refuse to let dehumanization, any dehumanization, be normalized or excused. We all must resist not only the authoritarianism of power, but the authoritarianism of falsehood as well. We must protect both truth and dignity, and we can. We must imagine a world where memory is honored and not manipulated. Imagine a world where protest means clinging to dignity and not mocking it. Where never again means vigilance against fascism, against terrorism, against the desecration of truth itself. We, each and every one of us, have the power of Aaron and Rabbi Hanania and of Rabbi Mendele We are the inheritors of letters that can never be lost and can never, ever be extinguished. The parchment may burn, the body may fall, but the letters will always fly. Holiness endures, and we must fly with them. So on this profoundly important Shabbat, a tefillah, a prayer, may the memory of those who refuse to surrender their souls plant seeds of courage within all of us. May the letters that flew free from that fire find a home in our hands and in our hearts and in our lives. And may we carry their song with tenderness, defend their holiness with strength, and live in a way that no flame can consume. And may we rise again and again. Shelo yigamer le'olam, hachol ve'ayam, rishrush. May we rise again and again in dignity, in hope, in love, and in resistance.